Morning. If you're a long-time listener, you might remember that a couple of years ago, in 2021, I think it was, we did an outdoor broadcast from Walker Swamp. Gavin McGrath and myself, we did a program from there. We learned a lot about the history of the area and the wildlife that lives there. And just to remind you, Walker Swamp is a wetland. It's owned by the Nature Glenelg Trust, a not-for-profit environmental organisation that straddles the Victorian South Australian border, covering the area from here in the southwest across to Mount Gambier. This project, the Walker Swamp project, began quite a while ago and culminated in the ecologists buying an old blue gum plantation which had been drained and logged, and they got rid of the remaining stumps. They allowed it to reflood and then sat back and watched as all the animals and wildlife returned. It was a great success. There are plans now to expand this, I understand. Mark Bachmann, who's the Managing Director of Nature Glenelg Trust, is here to give you an update around this. Mark, welcome to you. Oh, hello, Mark. You there?
Yes, hello. Have you got me?
Oh, I've got you now. Fantastic. Thank you. So, how is Walker Swamp going? Has it been continuing to, I guess, function and perform as expected?
Yeah, since we caught up last time, we've had a couple of really interesting years, and particularly last spring with the floods that occurred around Victoria, the southern Grampians area got some pretty big rains, and so we saw water levels in Walker Swamp late last year at the highest level that we'd seen them since the restoration process began. So, yeah, the wetlands, despite this being really the driest time of the year now, as we go into the refilling phase this winter, there's still a lot of water out there, and we're seeing fantastic results in the ecology of the site, the number of species that have returned, and the ongoing evolution of some of the habitats that are bouncing back.
It is a bit of a sort of tucked away site, which I'm imagining a lot of people might not still know about. As a visitor kind of thing, are people sort of coming and having a look?
Yeah, they are, and we're fortunate that even though the site is a little bit tucked away, it's not that far from Dunkeld, and certainly the visitor centre there have been encouraging people to go for a short drive out to have a look at the site, and we have a small private car parking area and viewing tower right on the road that sort of splices the site down the centre. So for people who want to go and just have a passive look, that's a fantastic way to get a sense of the site and the project. And even though it's a little bit hard to imagine, if people do go out there for a look at some stage, imagine instead of looking over a restored wetland, being shrouded in the canopy of a blue gum forest, because that's what it looked like not that long ago. It's really only in the last 5 years we've been able to transform the site to how it looks today.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us about these plans to expand it then. So you want to buy some more of the land that surrounds the swamp?
Yes, at the northern end of the swamp ever since we purchased the wetland, really, we'd had our eye on this area at the northern end because there's a really fantastic area of about 200 acres of remnant threatened manna-gum woodland on the bank that actually adjoins Walker Swamp, and it also picks up some of the edge zone around the swamp. And based on the configuration of the parcels of land up there, the area that we've got under contract, as well as that area of remnant bushland, which is in really good condition that we're looking to protect, there's also about another 190 acres of cleared or semi-cleared land that was previously planted to blue gums that we are going to look to restore the woodland on. So expanding that patch of habitat, and obviously that'll be good news for the woodland birds that occur in that area. And being right next door to the Grampians National Park, we have the benefit that if we put habitat back in the landscape, we'll see species come across and reoccupy these areas of their own accord because they're already in the landscape. It's an issue that you don't have so much when, it's an issue that can be a real issue, a real problem when people try to restore habitat in really remote areas a long way from the nearest patch of bush. But because this is so close to the national park, we've got that really fantastic complementary sort of habitat situation going on with it being nearby. And in terms of the reserve itself, it allows us to really round off the project to be not just about restoring the wetlands of the Walker Swamp proper and the surrounding floodplain, but this picks up that additional area of really important and complementary terrestrial or dryland habitat, which means that we're really picking up and representing the range of habitat types and and therefore creating an opportunity for the whole range of species that occur in that area to recover.
Yeah, right. So who currently owns what you're hoping to acquire then?
The people who purchased the former Blue Gum estate have decided to sell the various areas that they still hang on to that remain. So so it's a very small part of a much broader estate that we've managed to secure under contract. But I guess fortunately from our perspective, this area is on the edge of being as viable as farmland, given the amount of bushland on the area and the quality of the soils. So from an environmental point of view, it really makes sense to, at this particular fork in the road, for it to be an area that we take down the environmental restoration route rather than seeing it go into more intensive agriculture. We're not talking about taking really prime land here out of agriculture. It's an area that you would say is more marginal from an agricultural perspective. So, from that point of view, we're looking to find places in the landscape where we can do projects like this that are complementary with what's going on with our neighbours, and we're really happy to say that we get along really well with our farming neighbours out there. We're part of the community, and very proudly so. Right,
yeah. So it's not like there's a fight developing over getting hold of this land necessarily, or what might happen there.
No, there's other parts of that wider estate that are certainly will stay in agriculture and that were more suited to that land use.
Yeah.
Much like Walker Swamp itself in the first instance was, a lot of things were thrown at it, and a lot of different. It was farmed for a long time, and then it went through a phase of blue gum plantations. But ultimately, it was an area that really lent itself to being restored to nature. And for people who eventually go for a look, or if they go to our website and have a look at some photos of Walker Swamp, they'll see what we mean when we say that this is an area that really lent itself to being restored.
Now, you are trying to raise funds, I understand. Where are you up to with that?
We're going along okay, considering that this has all come about quite last minute, and we've got about 2.5 weeks until the purchase is due to settle at the end of the month. We've raised, of our $500,000 target, we've raised about $220,000 so far. Now, of the remainder that we are seeking to raise, we've actually got the fantastic support of some major donors and the Purri Trust, who are matching all remaining donations up to that amount. So we're still looking at raising about $130,000, $140,000 in fresh donations, and then those donations will be matched dollar for dollar, which will get us up to that $500,000 target. Hopefully by the 30th, if not, hopefully very soon thereafter, so that we're not carrying any or too much debt on the purchase when we settle on the 30th of June.
Right, I see. Yeah, and you're not able to access any sort of council or government assistance here, or the timelines there just don't match up, or?
It may surprise people to learn that land purchase for conservation, with the cessation of a program that the federal government had about 10 years ago to help with land purchase, there really aren't very many opportunities at all from a local, state or federal government perspective to purchase land for conservation. It's often the hardest step, which is why we're seeking public support, because there's very few grants. If people look at the fine print of a lot of the grants that come out, most of them have land purchase as an exclusion. It's an item that's not eligible for funding. So, so this step is the one that we can really use people's help with, and then the next steps, the restoration process, revegetation, they're the steps that we often find the grants are quite readily accessible for, and we have much more success in attracting grants. But getting the ground in the first place, this is the step that we can really use people's help with.
All right, okay. Well, hopefully people will come on board and help you get there. Mark, thanks very much for that update, and look, we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks very much, Jeremy.
Thanks again. That's Mark Bachmann there, who's Managing Director of Nature Glenelg Trust, with a bit of an update, yes, on some plans there to expand that Walker Swamp area.